Thanks to our sponsor, donedeal.ie, we bring you Business Bites, the best bits of that great business show, served up in individual servings.
Done Deal Motors is home to Ireland's largest range of new and premium used cars. That's why you'll find cars from Mercedes-Benz, Audi and BMW dealerships on Done Deal. Are you looking for a 7-seater to accommodate your growing family? Maybe you're after a luxury saloon to make a statement. We have the car for you. You'll also find Ireland's largest range of electric cars to help you make the switch. Visit donedeal.ie today to start the search for your next car.
From episode 122, here's actuary Colm Fagan. Here's something really, really different. My next guest wants you to have a higher pension for half the cost. And no, he is not trying to sell you something. He's a long-time retired actuary who was, just a few years ago, president of the Society of Actuaries. But he hasn't been idle in retirement. He's been busy with his abacus, and he's recently won a big prize for his big pension idea. Colm Fagan, welcome to That Great Business Show.
Thank you, Conal, for that kind introduction.
It's kind but uncomplicated, because whatever else, people loathe talking about pensions. Yeah. You are here because I want them to hear your words of wisdom. I've known you for, as they say, quite a while. You are very, very well regarded. What you say, you know what you're talking about, is what you say is also important. And as I say, you were president of the Actuarial Society of Ireland, or whatever it's called nowadays. And you didn't get that by chance. You know what you're talking about. I say it twice, 3 times. But there is a thing called auto-enrollment about to happen.
Yeah, and maybe it's important, first of all, to tell the listeners, this is not just for any pension. This is purely for this auto-enrollment idea. So let's maybe talk very briefly about auto-enrollment. It's the government's plan to deal with the problem that we have in this country. There's only 1 in 3 private sector workers has a pension at the moment. And so the other 2 out of 3 are completely dependent on the state for their pension in retirement, and that is wrong. And they've tried various things over the years, so now they're trying a different thing, that no one's going to be forced into getting a pension, but you will be automatically enrolled in one. So therefore, if you have just a small company, and I give the example of the local tyre repair shop in Bray where I live, that the workers there will be automatically enrolled in a pension where they pay a contribution, their employer pays a contribution, and the government pays 1/3 of what they have. Now, it eventually is supposed to build up what the government is saying, that they pay 6%, the employer pays 6%, and the government pays 2% of earnings up to 80,000 a year. And they're saying that amount is what is required for what they call an adequate pension, taking account of your state pension entitlement. Now, what I'm saying is that now I think we had a little conversation before we started that you probably oversold me a bit there, O'Connor. I'm underselling myself, but I'm saying that the same or higher pension can be afforded not for a 6% contribution, but for 3.9% from the employer, and just 1.3% from the state. And how does it work?
Well, roll it back, Colette, for 1 second, because central to what you want to say is the state, in its wisdom, is giving this, it's a bonus beyond bonuses to the pension businesses. And what your idea is, it shouldn't happen that way. One provider.
One provider, yes. Now, in fairness, the government itself is saying that they will have one provider. They changed it from their original plan. But the big difference, and maybe I can just cut to the chase what the big difference is, that under the government's plan, as currently articulated, they're saying that the government will look after people all the way through as they are contributing until they get to retire. And they'll have a big pot of money then. But what the government is saying, they'll turf people out of this lovely scheme where they're being looked after. And when they get to 66, 67, whatever the age, they will have to look after themselves. And that, I'm saying, that is all wrong.
Right. So we'll get back to that point later. So I interrupted you. You were just about to give a magnificent exposition of why your scheme. Now, you've done an awful lot of work. This isn't just something that you're lying in bed thinking about. You've done, and the prize, you won a prize in London a couple of months ago.
I did indeed, yes.
For
in
this.
October,
so this is not just something that fell out of bed.
No, it came to some extent from my own pension. And the way I have managed my own pension for years and years is that I take, like any long-term savings account, I put money aside while I was working, and then when I get to retirement, and I, inverted commas, retired about 11 years ago, I started drawing from it. And now, but in my case, I was invested very heavily into the stock market, into equities. And as you know as well as I do, Conal, the stock market fluctuates all over the place, and it can be quite frightening for someone who doesn't have experience of that world. You could lose, I mean, for instance, in March 2020, when the financial world realised the impact of COVID, markets fell by 20% in less than a month. Now, that would be terrifying for an ordinary person. But what I've devised, and this is what I won the prize for, is that one can smooth things out. And, it's a little complicated, but we might get into it later. But so
we won't. No, we'll accept that what you say exists and is true and is accurate.
Yes, but what is possible is that in the long term, that you can smooth out all of the ups and downs of the stock market. It's like a very wavy sea, and you have a line or a graph and a line just going through it very nice and smoothly. In the long term, it'll track what is happening, but I'm talking about in the long term in 5, 10, 15 years, because that is the sort of times we're talking about. So what I'm saying is that this pension, as I have envisaged it, that the money will go into the accounts as you're working, and it accumulates with interest. And I say the interest rate that you would get is on average about 4% more than you would get in a bank or a building society or in the credit union account. 4% a year. And over years, that compounding is massive. So you just keep accumulating the money in that account while you're working. Then you come to retirement and you start withdrawing from that account. It's as simple as that. So you accumulate and you're getting 4% a year more than you would get in a deposit institution, and then you start drawing from it. This
idea is so clever that you tried to, am I right in saying, patent it?
Well, I started to patent one particular part of it, because there's another element to that, because as soon as you start drawing down, and take, say, someone of my age now, I'm into my 70s at this stage, you're supposed to say, Conal, you don't look at nature.
You didn't give me a chance.
Anyway.
Colm, you don't look a day over 50.
Yeah. But you say, oh gosh, do I have enough here now to last me for the rest of my days? So you can do either of two things. You can sort of skimp and scrape and you leave too much for the next generation, or you can splurge it all and you die a pauper, right? And I've got what I think is a neat solution to that particular aspect of it, but maybe that might be deferred until a later point. But I'm saying that you just draw down, and I'm saying that you can choose yourself how much to draw down once you stop working. I'm saying you can draw down between 3% and 8% of your pension amount every year. Obviously, if you draw down 8%, you're leaving less for yourself for the future, or for your estate and for your family afterwards. But, it's a balance that you constantly make. And I realise myself now, since I'm retired, that this idea of an annuity, that you have the same amount for the rest of your days, that is madness. Your needs vary. So you can...
Now, let me hold you there, because we're now kind of getting into the weeds, as they say, of pensions. An annuity. Explain what it is, and explain why people are given annuities.
Okay, what an annuity is, it's an option for people, or well, not an option. When if they buy an annuity, they get an income for life for a lump sum. So let's say that...
What happens is John Smith, Mary Smith has accumulated, we'll say, 80,000 quid, and they will then, when it comes to pension time, they go out and they buy a thing called an annuity.
Yeah. And this is what the government is proposing now, and this is how their calculation of the 14% contribution is based. That you accumulate your money in this a pension fund that has been set aside for you, and then you come to retirement and they say bye birdie, and they give you your money, and let's say, for sake of it, I'm not that good at the old sums, Conor, so 100,000 rather than the 80,000. So you have 100,000 that you have there when you retire. And this is what the government is now saying, oh, well, maybe you could buy an annuity for your life with that. And with that annuity, you can expect to get maybe 3% annuity life. So in other words, you give up your 100,000 and you'll get a pension of 3,000 a year for the rest of your days.
And those are real figures,
those
real numbers.
No, well, real in the sense of actual. I mean, they haven't calculated it.
No. But what I'm saying is, like, people really need to understand
but that's not inflation
how
proof.
little is involved.
Exactly. Sorry, when you said real, I thought you meant maybe real in inflation terms. No, it's actual. It's just 3,000 a year for 100,000 euros. That if you say at 65, now I haven't got the numbers and I haven't checked them, because what I'm saying is, with the approach I'm doing, you would do far, far better. And why would you do far better? Because with an annuity, the money is invested in so-called secure bonds, government bonds, and government bonds are paying very little. I mean, last year, German bonds were negative interest rates. Now, they might be about 1%, 2% positive now. While if you are invested in the stock market, you can expect in the long term to get at least 4%, or we can quibble over what, but in general, around 4% a year on average more. Now, you may have the occasional March 2020 when you dropped 18% or 2%, but that is part of the price. It all goes, it's, if you don't speculate, you won't accumulate. And the risk and reward go hand in hand. So what I have done is you can keep the reward whilst diversifying the risk.
But the thinking and the thinkers behind this kind of a scheme in government are hugely conservative, and they are not going to have on their gravestones, I went with Colm Fagan's great idea, because at least with an annuity, albeit 3,000 quid or whatever, you know that the government is going to pay it. As long as the government stands, of course.
Well, this wouldn't be the government, actually.
No, what I mean is that the system, it's as gilt as can be.
It'd be an insurance company that would be buying. This is the point as well, that they're letting people loose, and there's all sorts of intermediaries involved, and commissions and charges and things like that, to advise people, well, do you take an annuity? Do you have a joint life or a single life annuity? And we could talk about all that. Do you have a guarantee? I mean,
you've got a great life. You're talking about that kind of stuff as well, are you?
But I'm saying that people can get utterly confused, and I'm trying to simplify it, that you have an account that you build up when you're working, and you take from it when you're retired, and you decide how much to take every year. But it gives so much better, because the money is being invested, constantly earning around 4% a year more than you would get from that annuity.
Which is a chunk of money.
It's a massive amount of money.
And particularly because it grows each year on top of each other.
On top of each other, on the whole compound. That's what I said. I mean, and that's partly why, and in fact, I am conservative on what I say, that I said that the 6% contribution can actually be 3.9%, but that is allowing for the fact that you take some cash when you get to 65, or when you get to retirement. You take, I'm saying, 25% in cash. It's a bit like the way the civil service have their gratuity and their pension, and this is a similar sort of thing. Now, if you were to take it all in pension, it would be even bigger advantage. So that's how it changed a little from the figure that you introduced.
So the real reason that I wanted you here was to start pointing fingers, naming names, and doing blamies. Why are they not taking the Colm? What are you calling this scheme anyways? Is
a smoothed equity approach.
Smoothed
equity, yeah. Now, actually, one of my friends, actually, who's you might know him, Sean Keyes, he's with the Currency magazine. He called it the mehel. Now, because I used the concept of the mehel, and those of us like myself who came from the west of Ireland would know that the mehel was a concept that we had when at harvest time down in Mayo. that all the farmers would work together to, save oats it would be in that, or barley in that situation. They would follow the thrashing machine around, and all the people in the local townland would work together on it. And this was, I said, the idea of the mehel is working together, but that maybe gives a slightly wrong impression, because I said even on purely selfish grounds, people should be doing the particular thing I'm saying.
So who's stopping it? Or put it another way, why is it not being adopted?
Yeah, you gave a hint of it yourself earlier, Colm. It's new. It hasn't been done anywhere in the world before.
Which is pretty cool.
Well, yeah, well, I want to say, I spent many years thinking about it. And so, and I have a friend, well, we talk about the friend, I think, at the very end of the podcast, this question that you have at the end. So that's, they say that it hasn't been done anywhere in the world, and no commercial organisation has brought it in. Well, I said dough, as old Homer Simpson used to say. It hasn't been done anywhere in the world because it's new, right? And the point about the commercial organisation, and this is part, I think, of my problem, which maybe points to another issue, that it is completely uncommercial. This would never work in a commercial environment. It works purely for auto-enrolled pensions at a national level.
Who would manage it? Who would oversee the investments?
Well, I'm saying this is another issue where there's all sorts of hangers-on and so-called advisors in the industry that these asset allocators are be employed. You probably did this in your former life, Conor, who are earning a fortune. Say, you put your money so much into bonds, you put so much into alternative investments. I'm saying
give me a block wall now and I'll start beating my head off it if you want.
Everything 100% goes into what I call equities. But what I'd say, they are assets where you expect to get long-term growth in the value and expect to get this 4% a year more. So that's one problem got rid of. Now, I don't have any strong views on who, as you know yourself, you can choose a passive or active fund. Now, maybe we can define for a second what a passive fund is. It means say you just put it into the stock market, and you don't have anyone paid to choose, is this a good investment or is that a bad investment? Because the market is the market, and the market chooses the right thing. So I would be in favour of so-called passive investment. Just put it into a world stock market fund. That would minimise the costs, and you get the same return. And Warren Buffett has.
I was going to say Warren Buffett hasn't got too poor on the back of something very similar over decades and decades.
And I'm saying, actually, I have just one remaining job at the moment. I'm a non-executive director of one life insurance that I should emphasise does not do any business in Ireland, so therefore there's no conflict of interest involved in this. But my ultimate boss is Warren Buffett.
And does he know about your brilliant idea?
He doesn't know.
Would you not write to him and say, because people like Warren Buffett do want to leave a legacy?
Yeah, I haven't thought of that now. Yeah. Well, obviously I don't.
We'll tag him on LinkedIn and we'll tell him about you because we're going to run out of time now. Is what do you want done? Like you've written in the Irish Times, that's where I saw it. Yeah. You've got some responses in the Irish Times letter pages, which weren't all positive. Yeah. What do you want done?
What I want is, I don't expect government to just accept my word for this. I recognise that there could be flaws in it. Now, I find that difficult to imagine, but I do recognise. So all I want
is your gold medal or whatever you got.
I want the government to commission, say, the ESRI, to really kick the tires on this and look at it. And so, and that's all I'm asking. And what I'm
going to ask you a hard question.
Yeah.
Is the ESRI good enough or wise enough to do the tire kicking on this?
I think, what I've also said, though, is that I and my colleague Brian Woods, who's worked with me very heavily on this, that we would give them all of our spreadsheets. We have done so much, stochastic simulations. Now, I'll let you sort of tell the world what stochastic
good luck
simulations are. And
I learned two words, buy and sell. That was it.
And so we will make all of our analysis, our computer programs, our spreadsheets, everything available to them, and work with them, to get this evaluated. And I think they do have, because actually one important aspect of it is behavioural psychology. And they have someone, Peace Lunn, there, who is a terrific behavioural psychologist, and they have experts in investment and in finance and that. So
the answer is yes.
The answer is yes, they do have.
Okay. So you know enough people in the industry, in the pensions industry, to know and to have gotten feedback. Do they hate you?
I mean...
That was almost a yes.
I am finding it difficult to get through to people now, and partly it has been the last 2 years. As you know, we've had our 3 years, the whole COVID thing, and that does make things difficult. I did present a paper to my colleagues in the Society of Actuaries in Ireland in 2021, January 2020, but just almost around this date. And I got a mixed reaction. Put it this way, all my retired colleagues were very much in favour of it. All the more active people weren't that much in favour of it. Now, you can surmise as to why the retired people would be in favour of it.
Because some of the active ones might be working for the pension funds. Would that be true?
Maybe.
He's gone stum on me. That's weird. Colm, the final question. As always, we ask all our guests on That Great Business Show, who would Colm Fagan hire in a heartbeat?
Well, who I would hire in a heartbeat is the man who has worked with me on this for the last number of years. Now, he doesn't believe in everything. A guy called Brian Woods, he's another...
What do you mean he doesn't believe in everything?
He doesn't necessarily believe in it. I mean, there are some behavioural aspects of this which we both might have views on as to what would... happen in certain circumstances.
Are you looking for the man in the Clapham omnibus to how he or she might move or change?
That's why I say someone like Peace Lunn, who is a behavioural psychologist, would be very important for this as well. So the person I would hire in an instance is Brian. I mean, he has the rigour as well that I don't have. I mean, I would be a big picture person, and I went into the actuarial profession straight from school, and I thought I was going to be a mathematician, and to be honest, this was just hard sums I learned. But Brian is a true mathematician. He was sort of in Queen's, and then he went to Imperial College in London for a while, and he does sort of complex analysis for his spare time on a Saturday afternoon, and but he had that rigour.
There's another world out there, isn't there?
There is.
We're all thinking about what we'll cook with the chicken, and he's off there with his massive big charts and his sums, as you say. That is very interesting. So, one final question is: we're going to launch your theory, or what? It's more than a theory. It's your
approach.
Your approach here today, and I want to make sure that we will be pushing it non-stop until we break the pension system and we get it enforced by government. So you're now allowed to cut the tape on it and launch the Colm. Well, we won't call it the Colm Fagan, but what's wrong with the
smooth equity?
Okay, well, we will also call it the Fagan Woods, because you always put put it in alphabetical order. The Fagan Woods solution.
Okay, thank you.
Does that work?
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you.
Colm Fagan, actuary, thank you so much for joining me on That Great Business Show.
Want to increase sales, reduce overheads, and provide customers with a better service? Then use Big Red Web, the easiest way to develop and maintain your website. It gives you powerful business reporting, digital marketing, and automatically integrates with the award-winning Big Red cloud accounting software. It's a game changer for SME businesses. It's so good, the government gives you a €2,500 grant towards it. Big Red Web, e-commerce made simple. BigRedCloud.com/web.
De facto shaving oil, made only from natural oils. Nothing nasty on your skin.
This interview was first posted on episode 122 of That Great Business Show. For more great business insights, listen to the entire back catalogue of That Great Business.